Today on the show, we party hard in Kansas, dodge bloaters, and go the extra mile in the name of family. Welcome to Lore Party, the podcast that explores the stories, characters, and universes of our favorite video games. I'm Lawrence.
And I'm Connor.
And like always, we have a special episode because I think I say that at the beginning of every episode.
I think it's accurate. They are all special. It's true.
Yes. This has been
but especially this time because we're in the home of the this year's Super Bowl champions.
Yeah.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh yeah, Kansas City is eating good, man. They got a in both timelines, I guess. They got a Super Bowl, and they're liberated from an oppressive government establishment.
Good on Kansas City, man. Those shout out to Missouri. They're living it up right now.
Yeah, unless you're God, I was listening to Brett's on the their podcast about The Last of Us, and I think it was a Mark Twain thing, a Mark Twain quote, when it was just like, if you're about how you pronounce Missouri, and like if you're from there, it's misery. So it's like how he opened up. It's like how they opened up that episode and
Missouri. Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, yeah, Kansas City, man. Looks like Kansas City is basically just undefeated in whatever timeline you're in, or defeated. Who knows?
I mean, if you could say at the end of this episode, I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves, but defeated might be the word. I don't know. But yeah, so as usual, we're gonna jump into the meat of the episode, just kind of go over what happened, what the highlights were, and then break it all down and just share our thoughts. But first, we're gonna do a little housekeeping. We always love to hear from our listeners, so email us anytime you'd like at podcast@loreparty.com. Give us your thoughts, your criticisms, your praise, all of it. Let us know. Don't be a stranger.
Yes, this is the official podcast of the Kansas City Chiefs. Not really.
You're gonna get a suit. I don't know if you can say that. Yeah, no, we are the official The Last of Us podcast and the official Kansas City Chiefs podcast.
Yeah, ask Neil Druckmann.
we're on a first name basis with Neil. You can check with him.
Yeah.
Don't actually do that. We're kidding.
You can check with a Neil, not B Neil Druckmann.
Yeah, no, we know a Neil.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, one person you can reach out to directly if you'd like is Lawrence himself. You can get in touch with Lawrence on Twitch and Twitter at @producedby_LK.
Yes. And if you want to sidestep that and sue Connor instead, you can you can contact Connor on Twitter at Connor Howard VO. That is Connor with an ER. And you can even check out his website at Connor Howard. That's Connor with an ER. HowardVO.com.
That's right. And of course, you can always get in touch with the entire team. Sue us collectively, the entire Lore Party team.
One fell swoop.
You can find, do it all. We're easy to find. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch at @lore_party.
Woo.
That's right.
We're going to get started with the show in a second. But first, is that Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes? No, that's actually just a clicker. So we'll be right back.
Common mistake.
It happens.
Okay, we're back, and we're going to start the breakdown of episode 5 of The Last of Us on HBO, titled Endure and Survive. But if you haven't watched that episode yet, now's the time to pause and go watch it. If you don't want to read it, if you don't want spoilers, this is your official, one and only, first and final spoiler warning.
Yes.
Beware beyond this point.
Yes. And additionally, we want to put a trigger warning here at the beginning of the episode because later in the episode, this episode does contain conversations and discussions about suicide. So, like, if you or a loved one is struggling with suicidal thoughts, please stop the episode, dial 988 or Google suicide prevention to find local resources near you.
That's right. Okay, so warnings are out of the way. We're all ready, so let's get into it. So, episode 5, Endure and Survive, picks up pretty much exactly right where episode 4 leaves off and actually shows us a bit of a flashback before episode 4. We open up on Joel and Ellie. They have guns in their face. It's the dead of night. They've been woken up by two strangers, and they're being held up, basically. But then the story pulls back a bit, shows us what Kansas City was like right before Joel and Ellie arrived. So we know that Fedra had been particularly oppressive and fascistic, basically, toward the citizens, the residents of Kansas City. And we also know that from the previous episode, the community of Kansas City, the regular working stiffs, the civilians, as a group, as a collective, overthrew them. And we can surmise that they were led by Kathleen and possibly her brother. She mentioned her brother in the previous episode. And beginning of this episode, we're seeing some serious shit go down. Like, we're basically seeing what seemed to me like the after party of the war has been won.
Yeah.
Like the militia, I'm going to call them, the militia of Kansas City have officially defeated Fedra, and Fedra soldiers are just being lynched, beaten to death, shot, dragged behind trucks. Like, this is the brutal, bloodthirsty, joyous victory of the oppressed insurgents who have won their struggle. It's a pretty brutal scene. Like, it's pretty messed up.
Oh yeah. Very, very it's very, very barbaric.
Yeah.
And then we're then taken to what is like presumably a federal holding cell with a bunch of scared citizens sitting on the ground, and Kathleen and my boy Perry enter
Perry.
Yeah, Perry.
Our man.
They enter the holding cell, and then like they begin to play this role of good cop, bad cop, with Perry being the bad cop. But
the silent bad cop just stands in the corner and looks scary
with his gun that he always has, because Perry is not without his automatic weapon. But the real bad cop here, as we'll see, is Kathleen. Mm-hmm. She tells everybody, though, she starts off like, cool, you're like, hey, you won't be killed. We'll just put you on trial and you'll do some time, and that's about it. But you have to give me Sam and Henry. Like, you got to do that. Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to respond. Like, nobody wants to tell like where Sam and Henry are. And so she's like, fine, whatever. And she begins to leave the cell and signal that everybody will just be killed then. And one person steps up and decides to snitch.
There's always one.
Yeah.
There's always at least one. Yeah.
This jackass. No, just this person who was scared for their life decided to tell because they thought they'd be spared. But he reveals that Henry and Sam are fleeing to hide with the Dr. Edelstein, the doctor that we saw in the last episode who was killed. And so after, getting what she wants, she basically goes into a room with a bunch of soldiers, and her and Perry talk, and she's like, kill them all anyways.
Yeah.
Kathleen.
Yeah. Kathleen, hard as nails, man. I think she tells Perry as she's leaving, when you're done, burn the bodies. It's faster.
Yeah.
Like, it's all clinical to her. Like, she's like talking, it's like she's talking about the weather. It's psychopathic. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Kathleen is merciless.
Yeah. She don't fuck around. So while this is happening, we cut over to Henry and Sam, who, the backdrop while this is all happening, we've discussed the backdrop of basically violence in the streets. Like the fighting is over, but violence is still happening. Like Fedra's being wiped out in the background. The city has fallen basically to the militia. And while all that's happening, Henry and Sam, they're being hunted down. I love just the movement and the tone here. Like, these are two people, like a youngish man and a young boy, moving as if they know they're being hunted. Like, they know that they are wanted men. And they're kind of like dodging around, corner to corner down the streets. And they finally meet up with Edelstein, the doctor we met last time. And Edelstein kind of leads them to the attic crawl space that we also saw in the last episode. And he's like, he's telling Henry and Sam, don't worry, Kathleen doesn't know this place exists because a Fedra officer I worked with told me about this place. So it's kind of like off the radar. So they're hiding. They have a good spot to hide in. But unfortunately, they have no ammo for their guns. These are empty guns they're carrying around. And they also don't have that much food to live off of. So They have about 11 days worth is what Henry figures. And so they decide to use that time to plan an escape, and they are thinking about using the tunnels to get out of the QZ. The problem here is that Sam is, a young boy, not ready for any of this. Like, no kid should be going through this. And he's obviously terrified. And Henry's like trying to calm him down. But Edelstein tells Henry, hey, Sam is afraid because you're afraid.
Yep.
So just think about that.
Yeah. No, I liked that scene a lot. And it's crazy because they're like in the streets killing Federal soldiers, but they're also rounding up all of the conspirators too. Like
all the collaborators.
Everybody that's not a part of the resistance is basically just getting killed.
Pretty much.
So like,
yeah, if you picked the wrong side, like if you were even like Fedra sympathetic, not necessarily working with them directly, but they all got to go.
Yeah, so it's like dog eat dog out in the streets right now.
It really is.
It's nuts. And so Sam decides to talk to Henry, who's drawing a superhero on his like magic slate toy he keeps around his neck. And Henry tells Sam that they are 100% safe and reassures Sam that he's not scared. But Henry says the only problem is the place that they're hiding in, their place that they're hiding out in is ugly. And then he gives Sam like a giant bag of crayons and they decorate the place. And, they draw on the brick walls and, kind of just like liven things up because there's really nothing that they can do right now, but kind of just hunker down.
Yeah, I love that scene too because it was like, building up their relationship. This is very brotherly, and obviously Henry cares so much about his little brother that he's like distracting him, putting his mind towards something else. Like, you can't be scared if you're drawing superheroes, So like, no, it was beautiful moments like that. And we actually see 10 days later. So 10 days go by. It's kind of a time lapse. And we see that Sam has just gone buck wild with these drawings, just like putting superheroes all over the walls, all over the hideout. And Henry kind of refers to this little superhero character that Sam draws. He calls him Super Sam, which is fucking adorable. It's so heartwarming because it looks like a little version of Sam, but with like an orange mask on and a cape and a superhero outfit. It's great. And the sad news is, though, the streets are still full of militia. Like the Kansas City the mob is just still out for blood.
Yep.
And Henry and Sam are down to their last can of food. Sam says he's hungry. And Henry, tells him, no, we got to wait for the doctor. He's been gone all day, but he'll be back. We wait until he gets back. And this is the time where, like, for me at least, it became obvious that Sam is deaf. Like, that was, like, not explicitly said, but you can tell by the way, Henry and Sam communicate with sign language, which we'll talk about later, but that's a departure from the game. That's obviously not how it was in the game. But, yeah, so they're, like, kind of arguing over the food and, Henry's trying to calm Sam down, like, no, don't worry, Edelstein will be back. But the next day, he's not back. And so they basically both kind of figure that he's been caught and he's probably not coming back. He's probably not alive anymore.
Yeah.
And this doesn't do anything to help the fear situation. They're both still pretty freaked out and on edge. They basically have realized now that all they have left is each other. No one is left to help them. And obviously Sam is terrified of this. So Henry gets an idea. He tells Sam to close his eyes. And then Henry paints that little orange superhero mask around Sam's eyes, turning him into Super Sam, which again, just amazing. I love this relationship they're building through these scenes.
Yeah. And it is also it's equally as cute as it is dark, It
is, yeah. It really is. I especially love that, like, Henry goes to the lengths, like he takes his a little folding knife out and holds it up so Sam can see what he looks like in the reflection. Like, no, look at that. You're a superhero now. No one need to be scared. It's so heartwarming.
There's also one little detail I noticed, and I saw this actually on Twitter, is that right at that scene, Henry looks outside and there's a building and it's like an orange bar that goes across his eyes also. They're trying so it's just a little bit of cinematic genius there that they were like, okay, you both need to really summon your courage at this moment.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I thought that was just like really interesting.
Yeah.
So as they prepare to leave, because Henry has just discovered the patterns of the soldiers and they're going to go out there. Henry hears Joel and Ellie's truck crash from episode 4. So now we're seeing right at the part where the S10 it could do no more.
Yep.
And so he sees the truck crash. He sees the shootout. with the Kansas City crew. Like he sees Joel just put a dude down.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, Henry is like, hey, hold on a second. I got a new plan. I think I found these guys definitely aren't from here and they can handle their shit because like this man just wiped out a whole group of people.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Yeah, came in the S10. And so like later that night, Henry and Sam basically find the building where Joel and Ellie are crashing at. And they sneak up on them, and we basically get right to the end of episode 4.
Right. Yeah, you almost get the impression that Henry just started tracking them across town, like just followed Joel and Ellie to their hiding place, and he had this whole plan. Henry's definitely a planner. Like he kind of, it seemed like he had walked Sam through what to do. Like he was signing to him, like, okay, you know what to do. Just hold this at them and stuff like that. So yeah, now we get to the situation where Joel and Ellie have just woken up to guns pointed at them. And Henry tries to keep everything cool. He says, we don't want to hurt you. We want to help you actually. And, he's trying to de-escalate the situation. And Joel is just like staring daggers back at him, giving like ice cold one-word responses like, I'm going to put the gun down, then I want to talk. Okay. And Joel is giving every single indication that as soon as Henry puts the gun down, Joel's going to murder the fuck out of him. Like he's giving no ground at all. I love this interaction because like, yeah, Joel's like, okay. Henry's like, come on, man. He's like, just give me, I don't like the way you're talking right now.
It's like, everything is cool. I'm like, even I'm sitting there like, yeah, I wouldn't put the gun down.
Yeah, no, he's not acting like things are cool. Yeah. And I also loved Ellie chimes in. She's like, no, don't worry. He just always sounds like that. And so, it goes like this for a minute. And then Henry finally decides, okay, fuck it, YOLO. I'm going to trust you. I'm putting my gun down. And they start talking. They, he's like, hey, I'm Henry. This is Sam. And Henry says, we are the most wanted men in Kansas City. But now that Joel and Ellie are there, it's kind of a toss up. It's like, you might be most wanted too. So it's kind of like this immediate, brotherhood of four where it's like, okay, well, we're all wanted, we're all hunted down by these people who live here. So maybe we can help each other. They start, the situation is now finally calmed down enough where Joel and Ellie actually share their food with Henry and Sam. And, Joel's like, okay, well, you've eaten, no one died. Let's call this a win-win and go on our separate ways. But Henry's like, I actually know a way out of the city and I can show you in the morning. So it might, they might be able to help each other even more now.
Yes. And so that next morning, Henry and Joel, they look out over the city in this like office space that's upstairs in the building they're in. And Joel says that he heard that Kansas City Fedra were monsters. So this is where we kind of get a little bit of backstory into why there's a resistance. Because like Fedra everywhere sucks. But like this Fedra is particularly like monstrous and barbaric. Henry is, tells us they tortured, they murdered, they did other things. And for 20 years, like it was so like basically the entire duration of Kansas City's quarantine has not been good. It wasn't like
since the beginning.
Yeah, it hasn't been like a regime change or anything. It was literally, it started out as like people with way too much power oppressing citizens, like unjustly. So, and eventually the people, they rose up and they did it right back to Fedra. They did everything. So
repaid.
And so that's why that's the context that we get to like, the celebration, the celebratory like lynchings and beatings, like while these people are cheering and everything. It's like, well, why is this happening? It's because this is what these people suffered for 20 years. So it's like right or wrong, it's just they're just paying it back.
Yeah.
And so, Henry tells Joel that he's not with Fedra, but he is worse. He's a collaborator. Which is not something that Joel really wants to hear. Cause like he says he doesn't want to work with a rat.
Yeah.
Even though Henry knows the way out. Like Joel is instantly turned off by the fact that hearing the word collaborator. So He's had
Yeah.
he's had to have had some experience with that in the past. And so,
Well, being a smuggler in the Boston QZ, I'm sure that, like, yeah, he's probably had close calls with Fedra before, with collaborators before. So, yeah, this is just one of those I instantly don't trust you things.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, so Henry basically he reveals, like, he knows the way out, but he just needs someone to clear the way. And since Henry has never killed anyone and he's never been, he's never been violent, they need to make this alliance.
Yeah.
So basically, we find out that, Henry's never killed anybody, which is different than the game. And he's just basically, he's really good at intimidating. Henry's just tactical. He's just like, he knows how to basically overcome obstacles to a certain
He's the
extent.
schemer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is also the moment where he reveals to Joel, my gun's not loaded.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
So
I couldn't kill you even if I wanted to, basically.
Yeah, so he stuck Joel up with an unloaded gun, which was like, you're lucky to be alive, pretty much.
Really? Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
But like while they're talking, we see that Ellie and Sam have developed this friendship, and it's going really well. Like Sam actually laughs, which like up to this point, Sam has been completely silent. And Henry even remarks that this is like the first time he's heard Sam laugh in a very long time.
Yeah, it's nice. Ellie and Sam like are immediately hitting it off, and I think that Joel's like it's out of necessity that he has to go along with Henry's plan, but he's also like thinking like, well, it'll be good to have. Maybe he's thinking back of his mind. Ellie made a friend, so I don't want to ruin her day basically by telling these two to fuck off. So he decides to hear Henry out, and Henry explains the plan, like kind of lays it out. The city is run by Kathleen. Like, she has this whole place on lockdown. Her people are all over the place. But the way out is a maintenance tunnel that goes basically under the QZ wall, or just kind of outside the city perimeter that the militia has set up. So if they get to that tunnel, they can just walk right out to their freedom. And Joel's like, well, that sounds simple. What do you need us for? And so then Henry explains that the reason, he's like, have you noticed yet how few infected there are in this city? Like, you haven't seen any infected yet? That's because 15 years ago, Fedra, as a military force, drove all the infected in Kansas City underground. I don't know. He doesn't explain how that works, like how they did that, but
that
they pulled it off somehow, I guess.
That I'm still curious about, because I'm like, all of them? You just got them underground in a tunnel? Because I was like, you guys didn't share that information. Like, I know you were busy like oppressing people, but fuck.
Yeah.
That's it seems like,
yeah.
Hey guys, I got them underground. I got a plan for that. Like, that was 5 years into the infection.
Right. Like, how'd you find the time to do that when you were being jackboot thugs to everyone in Kansas City, like just, brutalizing people? And yeah, it's like, did you like shoo them underground with sheepdogs or some shit, like with cattle prods? Like, how'd that work?
Right. Get underground, you. Like, okay.
Go get. Yeah. Anyway, somehow they managed to wipe out everyone, all the infected in the city except for the ones underground. And so basically everyone in the city from then on assumed, Kathleen included, that the tunnels are full of infected and no one goes down there anymore. But Henry, always a schemer, always having the information, he says, I've got a tip from a Fedra guy I knew. He said that the specific tunnel that they want to use to get out of town, that one's clean. They cleaned it out. So he's like, it'll actually be easy enough. But, just in case there are infected, Joel and Ellie seem like they can handle themselves. They even mention, I think Joel and Ellie at this point, they mention, oh yeah, we ran into a couple clickers a while back, and the fact that they're still alive is like, Henry's like, wow, you fought clickers and lived. Okay, that's maybe this. I think he describes the plan as, quote, dicey as fuck, but he's like, hey, well, with you two, we have a chance, basically.
And I love it because it's like, no one mentioned the fact that there were 3 people when they fought 2 clickers, and there's not 3 people anymore. And it
wasn't a completely clean victory.
It's like, we got away, but there was another person, they didn't. Yeah. But like, and it's like, Henry is like, the one thing that I love about this is like, Henry is still young. Henry is a young man in his
mid 20s, maybe late 20s.
But he is tops. He is like forced to. He is very much has to assume the role of an adult through this whole thing. So I like seeing his very childlike optimism. Like, oh yeah, with you guys, I'll be fine. And even Joel's probably like, we might get lucky.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And so they make their way to this bank that has like the path to the tunnels, and as they enter, Joel tells Ellie to get her gun out. And so it's shit might go down because Joel was so anti child having a gun in the last episode, and now he's like, "Hey, get your gun. We're gonna need one."
I might need you to watch my back here.
Yeah, because this guy just told me his gun wasn't loaded, and he's never killed anyone. So, kid, right. You're up. And so, they head through the tunnels, and they don't find any infected. But they do find an area covered in kids' drawings, which, if you've played the game, you're like, oh shit. That they basically they find out where there was this underground establishment, like group civilization thing. Yeah. And so there's a cartoon castle on the front, and when they enter, they find this area for children with drawings, toys, a makeshift soccer goal. And Joel talks about how he's heard of places like this, after Outbreak Day, there were certain people that did go underground. But this was my favorite callback to the video games.
Yeah. I love this part. That's actually one of my favorite parts of the game too, when you just explore this basically a makeshift city underground where a community of people had just set up shop and lived their lives. So this was really cool. In fact, they tie this scene into the game even more with what Joel finds. He comes across this drawing, like a crayon drawing, like maybe a kid drew, with two big stick figure looking guys who are labeled Danny and Ish. And people who've played the game who are listening obviously know what I'm talking about here. In The Last of Us Part 1, we find out we can piece together clues from notes that you find throughout the game that Ish was a man who kind of started out the apocalypse on his boat and then ran aground and met some people who were living out in the nearby suburbs. And they kind of struck up a friendship, and they all decided to just live together in the sewers of, in the suburbs outside of Pittsburgh. In the game, it's Pittsburgh, but here it's Kansas City. And there's this whole entire story about Ish and all of his friends that he made who lived in this little underground city until, unfortunately, one day infected got in and pretty much everyone died except for Ish and a small group of other people. So it's like this story that has elements of hope to it, that people can still live communally and cooperatively and come together and make something, carve out a piece of goodness out of the world. And it ended tragically, but there was still that tiny flicker of hope there at the end where Ish at least goes on. So, no, it was cool. I kind of wish it's that's the thing that you'll get if you've played the game and then watched the show. Yeah. But I feel like people who just watched the show and hadn't played the game, they'll see a drawing of Danny and Ish and know that, people lived here and people were they had almost a society going on here, but they don't have the full scope of that little settlement, I guess. But also just a very cool tie-in though.
Yeah, seeing that man's optimism just get ripped away from him. If you wanna know more about this though, and you haven't played the video games, we actually do have an episode. The very first Last of Us episode that we did on the video games was about Ish. So check that out if you want to know about that depressing story.
That's a quality listen right there. Highly recommended.
And so, in the underground playroom, Sam finds an issue of Savage Starlight, which is also a callback to the game.
That's right.
It is a comic book that you just find throughout your travels, and Ellie collects them. And yeah, so this is actually pretty cool. And so Ellie shows her that she's her super excitement over the issue, and her and Sam bond even more over their love for the series. And Ellie recites the quote from the comic book in a very child imitating some superhero way. She's to the edge of the universe and back, endure and survive. Which is funny because they say, I keep going to the game, but when they say it in the game, it's when you're in Pittsburgh. She says it as a grounding thing, and Joel just kind of laughs her off. It was after they see a bunch of federal soldiers that had been killed. She just randomly quotes it, and he just is
Yeah, and then she starts saying it after Joel kills a bunch of hunters in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
She's like, endure and survive. He's like, yeah, okay, whatever, kid.
So it's just like it's a dark and cute throwback.
A little bit, yeah. There's a lot of that going around this time, like dark and cute.
Yeah, that's this episode. That's this episode.
That's right.
It's like so. Like Sam teaches Ellie how to say endure and survive in ASL.
Mm-hmm.
And which is cool. It's like a nice bonding moment. And so Ellie convinced Joel that they should basically like wait it out here. And since there's shit for them to do, like there's a soccer goal and everything, like they're kids, it's a room for kids. Like this is in this world, this is a pretty good find. Like,
yeah, big time.
And so Henry says that it would probably be a good idea and maybe they should wait till it gets darker. And so while it seems like Ellie and Sam are just excited to have, someplace they can take a break, Henry and Joel are over here chatting it up.
Yeah, it's, there's all those studies about like the importance of recess. Like young people literally physiologically need like a physical release and like, de-stressor like that. So, yeah, they get to have a little recess and, be kids for a minute. And so, yeah, Henry and Joel are kind of off on their own. And earlier it had been kind of outed and established that Joel and Ellie are not related. I think Henry makes an offhand remark like, hey, Ellie, your dad's really a real stickler. And they both immediately answer, he's not my dad, she's not my daughter. Like they say it at the same time. It's hilarious. And so that's out there. That's common knowledge now. And, Joel and Henry are kind of just making small talk, and having seen how much Henry cares for Sam, I think Joel comes to the realization, he tells Henry, I shouldn't have been so hard on you about being a rat. I understand. I get it why you would, do something like that to protect your brother. And Henry tells Joel that what he said earlier about never hurting someone wasn't entirely true. Henry tells the story about, there was this great man that he knew once, a man who was never selfish, very quick to forgive, a great, decent man who Henry would follow anywhere, like that was beloved by his community, including Henry. But then Sam got sick with leukemia. Sam came down with a blood cancer. That's, it's always bad news. And medicine does exist for that kind of thing, but Fedra had it. So the only way for Henry to get this medication for Sam at the time was through Fedra. And he said, I knew I'd have to give them something big in return for this medication. And that something big was this great man that he knew, the leader of the resistance movement in Kansas City and Kathleen's brother. So this is a big, needle drop moment of like, there it is. Yeah. That's what happened. We're getting so much background here. And, Henry's kind of just owning up to like, I did a bad thing. I betrayed my friend. I gave up a friend to the bad guys, the most evil guys you've ever met. But, I did it for my brother. I did it for Sam. He's like trying to relate with Joel a little bit too. Like, I think you understand because you might not be her father, but you were someone's.
Yeah.
That's a big quote right there. That's Henry's a smart guy. We know that. He's like perceptive. He can see from Ellie and Joel's relationship. Like he sees something in her, even though he doesn't want to be open about that or obvious about that. Henry picks up on it. So, that was a big moment. But of course, Joel wanting to avoid any conversations of that nature. He's like, we should get moving. Let's move along.
Feelings. What are you, my therapist? Get out of here, man. Let's go. What I really liked about that scene also is just like, even though Henry would do that again, no questions asked, like there's so much guilt. Because like when he looks at Joel in the face, he says, I'm a bad person. You can tell me I'm a bad person. And like, it's just like, it's, that scene hits me so hard because it's just like you're not actually a bad person. Like you just had to make an impossible decision. But like you how can you reconcile that in this type of world, especially when now you're being hunted because you tried to help your brother.
That is that catch-22 that I think Henry would struggle with, is that I betrayed Kathleen's brother to save my brother, But having done so, by doing so, I've put Sam in arguably maybe even more danger because like now the entire city wants me dead and him dead. So it's, like this is definitely something to struggle with. Like you made the best choice you possibly could, but it was still an impossible choice. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And so once they get on the move, because Joel doesn't want to talk about feelings anymore.
Hell no.
We go back to Kathleen, and she's just, against the wall in this bedroom, and we find out it's, her bedroom from when she was a kid. So she's basically been born and raised in Kansas, which is
Kansas City.
Kansas City. Yeah.
There are two Kansas cities. One of them is in Kansas. I know that's confusing.
Yeah. But yeah, so like you've just grown up in Kansas City your entire life. Like, damn.
Yeah.
So, no offense to anyone who lives in Kansas City, but she grew up she was born and raised in Kansas City, and then you got stuck in Kansas City because of a mushroom-headed infection. That's like
that's just hard luck right there. Yeah.
That sucks. Because like not even Perry is from Kansas City.
Yeah, he got stuck here, but at least he wasn't born here.
Yeah, Perry's like, I've experienced some other things. But so Perry comes in and he says that, basically she grills him like, how do you know I was here? And he's like, I talked to your mom, which we know her mom is still alive.
Wow, yeah.
So Perry comes in and he says like they still haven't found Henry or the man who killed Brian.
Right.
AKA old Knifin' Joel.
Joel Knifin' Miller. That's his middle name, Knifin'.
And so like Perry, like I said, Perry said Kathleen's mom told him where she was, and she reveals that this is the room that she grew up in, and like Kathleen is reminiscing about how her brother Michael, when her and her brother Michael were little, and how this room seemed to be like super big. And Kathleen says that she was so scared of thunder. So when there was a thunderstorm, Michael would, tell her that this room was a wooden box and nothing could get inside, and they'd be safe if they were here together in their perfect box. So they were basically thunder buddies.
Thunder buddies. Oh my god!
I never thought I'd ever be able to use that joke.
Is that a Ted reference right there?
That is a Ted reference.
Amazing Ted reference. Yeah. Well done.
Yes. Wham! I'm showing my age.
So this is an interesting scene because Kathleen's letting some walls down here. We're getting to know her as a human being, not just as a bloodthirsty insurgency leader. She's kind of letting us in on how much she obviously really looked up to her brother. Michael was, as Henry put it, like he was a great man. Everyone really looked up to him. Really, everyone really trusted him, and he was just this benevolent soul that didn't have a single enemy in the world, really. And Kathleen says he was just a beautiful person, but I'm not. She's kind of comparing them, like I'm not like my brother. He'd be horrified by the things that I've done. Is what she's kind of telling. She's like, I'm guessing Perry's really the only person in the city that she would confide in like this. And she's kind of like, leveling with him. She says, I know that Michael would want me to forgive Henry, and he wouldn't want me to hurt Henry because Michael told me the last time I saw him alive in that jail cell.
Which fuck, man.
Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if I knew that a loved one who had died would want something from me that I wasn't doing, I would reconsider my course of action. But no, Kathleen's the way she puts it is that Michael wanted forgiveness, but Kathleen points out, what did forgiveness get him? Michael was a gentle soul. He didn't want to hurt anybody. And where did that get him? She's like, what's the point of forgiveness if he died anyway? And so this is what she's kind of pouring out to Perry, and Perry's just, this passive, listener, but then he counters. He tells Kathleen, your brother, Michael, was a great man, but he didn't change anything. He was a leader we all respected, but he didn't take the actions that were needed. However, you did. You, Kathleen, did take the actions that actually changed our situation and freed us from Fedra. And so we are understanding how deep Perry's loyalty to Kathleen is. It was you who freed us. So we're with you. Me, all my guys, the whole city, we are behind you in whatever you decide.
Kathleen, you won the Super Bowl.
Kathleen
Yeah.
Mahomes is her name now.
And like I'm just like it's a hilarious scene. It's not a hilarious scene, but it's really telling because it is like,
Mhm.
hey, we just spent so much time talking about Michael's greatness, like from the scene with
Yeah.
Henry all the way over here, and then it's like, yeah, but like, you know, maybe he wasn't that great because he died. Like it's basically
Yeah.
what they give us, and I'm just like, oh wow, that's kind of fucked up. And then
It's
and
yeah.
like so like her I can understand because she's grieving. She, you know, she's like, my
Mhm.
brother is dead, and she's rationalizing in her head. Perry is just piling on top. He's validating that. Like Perry is like, well,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, I hear what you're saying, but also we're free. So like you
Yeah.
did good, and Michael, you know.
That is an interesting point. I think like from Perry's perspective, he obviously he sees Kathleen as a leader, but you know, she needs support sometimes too, and that's what he's there for. I think from his perspective, it's like she is a rock solid decision maker and the leader the city needs. She's proven that by defeating Fedra basically single handedly, or at least masterminding their downfall. And right now, she's having a moment of doubt. She's kind of doubting her course. You know, she's kind of fallen back on, you know, Michael wouldn't approve of what I'm doing, but that's why he's kind of making the point like, Michael, your brother inspired us, but you actually led us. So don't forget that, you know, this is all like, we have you to thank for our liberation, basically. So, but yeah, I think to your point, that is kind of like validating this cycle of violent tendencies that she's kind of stuck in, and like the vengeance that she's almost bordering on talking herself out of, but they kind of mutually decide like, no, fuck Henry, he has to die. Like I don't care what Michael would have
Yeah.
wanted.
And Chel's
It's
like, yeah, Perry, your blind loyalty. Wonder what that's gonna get you. Uh,
hey-oh.
so
Yeah.
we go back to the tunnels, you know, where we see like the group has made it all the way to the other side without running into any infected. So Federa guy was right. They cleared it out, I guess.
It checked out.
And so, you know, they walk through the suburbs, you know, outside, and Henry says, you know, they don't know where they're gonna go once they're safe. And Ellie's basically just like, yeah, we're heading to Wyoming. Come with us. And you know,
Yeah.
Joel,
Just kind of volunteers that information, and Joel immediately shoots a glare at her like, what are you
yeah,
doing?
like, don't invite these people over here. It's like when you're at a party, you know, like you're at a party with friends or like a significant other, and they know someone, you don't know them, and then they invite those people over and leave. Yeah,
What are you doing?
it's like, oh, no, I don't know these people. I don't want to talk to them. Oh god, it's like,
That's exactly what
you
it's
know,
like.
calm down. We got to get on out of here. So like, you know, Ellie, but Ellie makes the same joke that she made earlier. Like he's always like that. Like, you know, he's against something, and then she asks a million more times until he warms up to the idea. So we see that those two are bonding, and she's
Yeah.
also like not taking advantage of him, but she knows how to play Joel like a fiddle. And
They're getting familiar with each other for sure.
yeah, and so like that's just a testament to their bonds. Like it's not a bad thing at all. Like they are really getting to know each other fast because they have to trust each other. Like they have to when you know two people are depending on each other to generally survive. Like you grow to know someone pretty quickly.
Right.
And so Ellie, you know, as Ellie talks, you know, someone fires a gun and it just like narrowly misses them. And so we can see that there's a gunshot coming from a nearby house, which this is also a callback to the game. So fans of the game just eating good this episode.
Absolutely.
Just so
I love this part of the game. It's so much fun.
Yeah. Just I was like, oh shit, we're actually doing this. So there's someone just shooting from this house. And, you know, as they hide behind the car, I loved this scene because Joel is just like, because like Henry and Sam try to run away and then it doesn't work and they run back. And then Joel is just like so serious and is like, yeah, I'll take care of this. And then I was like, it's like they transformed you into video game, Joel. Except you don't.
He's ready to go.
Except you don't die and respawn like 1,000 times trying to get through this part. And so Joel basically just sneaks around the house to stop the guy. Sneaks all the way around, goes in the house, walks upstairs, and goes to stop and goes to stop the guy. So, but when Ellie worries about, he's basically like, I'm gonna go do this. This is what I'm gonna do.
Stay here. I got this. I got this.
Yeah.
covered.
So Joel goes into action mode, and then Ellie is like, well, what, I'm kind of concerned about this plan, my guy.
Doesn't want to be left behind. I think that's really her thing, is like she doesn't want to be left alone.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't want to be separated from him.
Yeah, because this is the person that's, this is her companion. And she's like, so Joel's basically like, do you trust me? And Ellie nods. And then Joel is basically like, all right, time to do it. Let's go.
Away they go. Yeah. Springs into action. He just sort of like goes on a flanking maneuver. He knows what to do. Like, obviously the sniper has Ellie, Sam, and Henry pinned down. So he's like, I'm going to go around. So he starts like, dodging and ducking and serpentining his way kind of around the side of the house. And, but he's like very nearly catching bullets the entire time. These shots are hitting like inches away from him each time. And I think he tells Ellie like, don't worry, it's dark out and this guy's got shit aim. I'll be fine. But the shots are coming pretty fucking close.
Yeah.
But he does manage to make his way to the house, gets inside, comes up to the top floor where the shots were coming from, and he comes up behind the guy. Turns out it's this old man, like this kind of gray, wrinkled guy with a sniper rifle. And Joel gives him the chance. He obviously doesn't go in guns blazing immediately. He just says, just slide over the gun. Just drop it, slide it over. But the guy doesn't drop the gun. He's holding onto it and slowly turning toward Joel as if he's going to try and, make a play, like take one last shot close range. And Joel starts actually like pleading with him, like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't try and shoot me. Don't make me shoot you. Basically, like that's like what the subtext is. But all he says is just don't do it. And unfortunately, the guy tries it. He tries to take a shot at Joel, but Joel's too quick.
Puts him down.
He's just that much quicker on the draw and puts the sniper down. And so once the sniper's dead, Joel starts hearing static from a nearby walkie-talkie, and then we hear Kathleen's voice through the radio. And I think she's saying the guy's name. She's saying Anthony, like just hold them where they are. We're almost there. So that's when we realize, shit, the guy wasn't trying to kill Ellie, Joel, and Sam and Henry. He was trying to pin them down, just keep them where they were. And Joel has an oh shit moment. Like he turns around and sees some vehicles coming down the road toward the others.
This is like a game of chess, which is what I really loved. So
he got baited. Yeah.
And so, as Henry and Sam hide, we hear Joel just yell "run" in the distance, and cars come, towards them from down the road, and they run. Sam, Henry, and Ellie just run, and Joel gets on the sniper and attempts to shoot the car before they can hit Ellie. And Ellie is just like shooting back at them and to no avail. But before a truck hits Ellie, Joel shoots the driver, which like dead on shot hits the driver.
Lucky shot, yeah. And
that truck goes crashing into a nearby house, catches on fire, and then blows up. I was like, holy shit. Like,
AAA doesn't cover that.
Yeah. I was like, damn, dude, what a shot. That's insane. Yeah. And so, of course, I'm also like, hey, everybody keep running. It's not.
You got an opening. Go for it.
Like, that was a sweet trick shot, but get out of here. So basically, it catches on fire, blows up, and then so Kathleen, basically all Kathleen's men pull up, and they're out of the cars now, and so Henry and Ellie and Sam hide, and Kathleen calls out that Henry could save them some time by just coming out, and Henry replies that like he'll come out, but just like let the kids go, like let Ellie go, let Sam go. To which Kathleen replies, no deal. Like she basically like Henry is over here pleading with her, that she doesn't understand, and Kathleen states that maybe Sam was supposed to die, and that kids die all the time, and does like Henry really think that Sam is worth everything? Like this is hilarious coming from her because this is someone who was just in a previous scene lamenting over their dead brother in their room. So it's like, how can, it's a
Yeah.
very, I loved this because it just shows so far down like the grief rabbit hole that Kathleen has gone, because like she's spouting bullshit, but she
Mm-hmm.
believes it to be true. And so like,
Yeah.
Henry tells Ellie to take Sam and get ready to run. And Henry goes out to meet with Kathleen.
Yeah, it's like they say, hurt people
For people.
hurt
Yep.
people. And so, yeah, Kathleen is kind of like, it's on the surface, like what she's saying about, no, I can't let Sam live because he's with you. It's a package deal. Like if one of you goes, you both got to go. And it's like, it doesn't enter into her equation at all. This is a fucking child she's talking about. It doesn't matter to her. It's like, it's basically, I think below the surface, it's my brother died. Why should yours live?
Yep.
Like I'm in such, I'm dead inside, so you should be dead outside and inside. It's kind of like, it's that cycle. It's like she's just so consumed by vengeance. Like she's not listening to reason at all. And so, yeah, she's facing Henry down, like the guy that she's been chasing for weeks now, just after him like a bloodhound. She's getting her gun out and she's like, well, this is it. It ends the way it ends. And she's about ready to shoot him. But in the background, I love the camera work here. You kind of just see it like subtly move, like some movement in the background. The truck that crashed into the house and exploded, it slowly sinks further into the ground. And then we start hearing very telltale shrieking sounds and clicking sounds. And this was such an oh shit moment. Like, oh my God, I'll get to that later. But this was fucking crazy. So after being buried for years, this just swarm of infected start pouring out of the hole in the ground that the truck has made, and they just envelop all of these Kansas City militia, all of Kathleen's soldiers, and it just hell breaks loose immediately. It's complete bedlam out of nowhere. And so Henry, Sam, and Ellie take this opportunity to try and run for their lives, while Joel is kind of covering them from the house. He's sniping infected that get a little too close to Ellie. He's trying to cover her, and Ellie jumps into a truck to hide from the infected. And just when you think it couldn't get any worse,
it gets 1,000 times worse.
It gets way worse because a hulking behemoth shape crawls out of the ground. And of course, we as the gamers, we know it's a bloater. This is a goddamn bloater. But I think the television show characters, none of them have seen this before. Like this is, I think, for Joel at least, because we talked about it earlier. In episode 2, he and Tess seem like they don't know what a bloater is, because Ellie describes one, but they kind of laugh it off like, yeah, right, whatever, that doesn't exist. So as far as we know, this is an entirely like previously unknown form of infected that the Kansas City mob is now faced with. And so this bloater just kind of makes its way out of the hole. It's kind of waddling out into the street and just ragdolling dudes, like just backhanding and punching people away. And Perry sees this thing. And of course, like we know he's hard as nails. He's a cold motherfucker, but like even he's like, okay, this is really this whole situation is pear-shaped now.
We done fucked up.
Yeah. This shit has gone sideways. He tells Kathleen to run for it. He's like, just get out of here. I'll cover you. And so he turns around, starts spraying. He's just hosing this thing down with bullets, just pouring his rifle into the bloater. But it has like no effect. The bloater just doesn't stop coming. Just walks right up, grabs Perry, and literally just rips his head off. Just head off entirely.
Rip Perry.
Which was, R.I.P. Perry. A legend gone too soon.
They got it, and I loved how it was in the video game fashion too. Hit him with the
it was like the same headlock sort of animation. It was amazing, dude.
Just rips. So like I would be like, bro, was Henry worth this? Fuck.
No, I don't know about that. Yeah,
dude, just slamming things. Like it's like the horde is already bad enough. But the damn bloater just starts incredible hulking people. I'd be like, how does this even make sense?
Yeah, that's icing on the cake. Like you were fucked, now you're mega fucked.
Because bullets ain't doing shit.
You need Molotovs for that. Well, that's what we learned in the game. You gotta set that thing on fire, then shoot it.
You can't. Yeah, you just can't go in guns a-blazing. Ask Perry.
Ask Perry.
And so we go from the bloater massacre to back in the truck where an infected child makes its way. It was a kid clicker, by the way.
A kid clicker. This was so messed up, dude. That blew my mind.
Because I was like, oh god, yeah, I'll get into this later. But yes, a fucking kid clicker makes its way into the truck and it's just flipping around. It's like with the slinkies from the 90s.
It is like a slinky, yeah.
I was just like, who the fuck thought this up? This is mad creepy. Like, because like this is the single most terrible thing I've ever seen. And
yeah, next level.
And so like it's just like slinking its way over to Ellie. And Ellie gets the fuck out of there and tries to head over to where she heads over to where Henry and Sam are, and they're under a car and they're fighting off infected. And Joel has just got the scope on Ellie the whole time and is protecting her with the sniper rifle while she's like running to them. And you hear them, you hear Henry yelling like get off, and like they're kicking away at the infected, and she stabs an infected that was like getting close to Henry and Sam and gets them out of that situation. But right before they get to safety, good old Kathleen finds them and holds them at gunpoint. Like there's World War III going on in the background.
I know. You'd think her priorities would be different now, but nope.
But, yeah, here's Kathleen, like hands in the sky. I'm like, what the hell, like, girl,
turn around.
Right? Like, we all got to get out of here. You trying to come with us? like, this is no one's winning here. But like, she holds them up.
Yeah,
and she gives them their spiel about she's not going to let them go and blah 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 blah, revenge. But they're like, hey, look out, Kathleen, and the kid clicker sneaks up behind her and jumps at her. And just basically just rips her to shreds. Like, it's absolutely terrible. Like, somebody was like, get a video of a child throwing a tantrum, and we're just going to edit over it and make it like the child's killing somebody. And it was absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, pint-sized killer right there.
And so while the kid is ripping her apart, everybody just gets away. Sorry, Kathleen.
Book it.
Yeah, you gotta take advantage of an opportunity when it pops up.
That's right.
And so then they kind of get out and reunite somewhere that's like not this place.
They put enough distance away from them. They get enough distance from the swarm of infected, which actually I think there's a shot at the end of the scene. It's kind of like a wide shot. It's panning out. It's kind of aerial, and you see just a wave, like an ocean of infected, are just kind of pouring through the street toward the city center where the quarantine zone is. That's a dire situation right there. Like, the militia's wiped out, its leaders are dead, and the infected it's like without number. Thousands probably. It's ridiculous.
They're about to eat the scraps. So they're about to get the scraps. So it's they've been underground for 2 decades and they are hungry. Yeah. So like Kansas had a good 10 days. Ripped Kansas.
Between the Fedra oppression and the swarm of infected, they had a nice week and a half of freedom.
Yeah, just chilling for them 10 days. Those 10 days were sweet, and then they weren't. But luckily for our quartet of characters, Joel, Ellie, Sam, and Henry make it to safety at a hotel down the road, probably just outside the suburb. And they're resting, catching their breath. Close call there. And Joel and Henry are, talking in the main room. They're just sort of chatting and getting their strength back. And Joel mentions to Henry that he doesn't have a plan for how exactly they're going to get to Wyoming, but Henry and Sam are welcome to come with he and Ellie on the trip. So it's like, this was big, I think. This is a big moment for Joel to trust a stranger and just open up the possibility of we can be a group. It won't be just me and Cargo anymore. It'll be the 4 of us. And Henry agrees. He's like, yeah, that sounds good, man. I think, Sam already has a friend. It's good for him to have a friend. And I'll tell him in the morning that we're coming with you. And he says something that's so powerful and so sad in the context of what happens. He says it's going to be a new day, new start. Yep. And he's just so visibly shaken up, while they're talking, before we go from the beginning of they're in the suburbs, and he's like, it's probably best we just kind of go our separate ways. And
Yeah.
two, yeah, I'll definitely, like, he comes with him. He's like, hey, we can go to Wyoming. He's like, yeah.
I think, yeah, he's like realizing I better stick with Joel if I want to survive. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. And I think there's like nerves from the situation they just survived, but also there's some relief in there.
Yeah.
Like, Henry's relieved, like, okay, we might have friends we can rely on now. Like, we've been on our own for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, they go, Henry closes that door and, tells him to go to bed. But instead of going to bed, because come on, it's Ellie. She's bad. Bad kid. Ellie and Sam, Ellie and Sam like read the comic book together. But using his magic slate, like Sam asks Ellie if she's ever scared, this is like straight from the game. But Sam says that she never looks scared. And Ellie like replies that she's scared all the time. And then of course she gets super defensive and is like, of scorpions. And
just deflecting with humor.
Yeah, because that is, what else can you do in this world? And then so like, but then like, she gives a serious answer because like she's getting this look from Sam that's like, come on. And she says she's scared of ending up alone, which we get a good glimpse at in this episode. She is very scared of ending up alone. And when Ellie asks Sam, like, what is Sam scared of? He replies, if you turn into a monster, is it still you inside? Which
another pull directly from the game.
Yeah. And like that is a good question because we don't know, we don't know.
Yeah.
And so like after asking this, Sam shows Ellie that like he was bitten on the leg during that struggle. And it's just it's a sink. You get the sinking feeling, and like the way they portray it here is even better than what they do in the game because like Ellie is, also reveals that she has been infected, but like that she's immune, and she tells him that her blood is medicine. Because Ellie doesn't know how this works. She just knows that she can't get infected, and that she's going to the Fireflies, and there's probably some cure with her blood, etc., or something. And so she cuts her hand and then rubs her blood into Sam's wound, hoping that, hoping this might do the trick. Like, she's just like, hey, I'm going to just do this. And, it's like Sam or Ellie really wants to help. Like, they have a great friendship. She really wants to help. Like, she is totally vulnerable. She's like, we're going to get through this together. I'm going to do this for you. And so Sam asks Ellie to stay awake with him, and she promises that he's gonna be okay, and that they hug, and it's like it's so sad and cute. It's dark and cute.
Yeah, dark and cute. There it is. Yeah, it's a bit of a debatable thing about like the whole, is there consciousness in the infected left? I guess like we don't have clear answers, but I think some of the game material tells us that the recently infected, like the runners, I think there's some indication that the people who are runners who are recently infected, they kind of still have consciousness in the back of their minds, but they're basically in a cage. Like they're like prisoners in their own body when the fungus takes over. But I think by the time they get to a clicker level, their higher reasoning is completely gone. Like there's nothing left of the person who was infected at that point. But so it's kind of like hard to say. I mean, the fact that a recently infected, a runner, like they can't respond to you, they can't talk to you anymore. It's like it's weird. It's like a vegetative state almost. But I think that's above Ellie's pay grade to know or understand, and obviously Sam wouldn't understand that. So it's like that's a very legitimate fear. Like, what if I turn in one of those things? Like, is that the same as dying? Do I know what I am? Like, do I remember who I was? It's a terrifying thing for an adult to ponder, let alone a child who knows he's now sick and might turn. It could turn soon. So this was, my heart was dropping into my stomach already at this part. And then we get to the next morning. Ellie has dozed off in the chair. She's sitting in the chair next to Sam's bed, trying to stay awake all night with him. But she's finally waking up and sees that Sam is sitting on the edge of the bed looking out the window. And when Ellie goes up to him, he turns around and snarls and is twitching when he sees her. And he has turned. It's tragic. Sam immediately tackles Ellie, and they're like kind of tumbling into the next room where Joel and Henry are sleeping, and she's trying to fight Sam off as best she can. And Joel realizes what's happening. He goes for his gun, but Henry actually gets to it first. Henry gets the revolver and actually shoots a warning shot at Joel, like, stay back. And it's a tense situation. Sam is like getting close to biting Ellie's face off, and it's the heat of the moment overcomes Henry, and he shoots Sam off Ellie, just kind of acting on instinct, shoots his brother. But then moments later, he realizes what he just did. He has killed his little brother, the one person he's been fighting like hell and sacrificing to protect this entire time. And he cries, he breaks down, he's despairing. He aims the gun at Joel, just kind of like not really knowing what to do, and he keeps asking himself, what did I do? What did I do? It's hard to watch. It's a man completely breaking down. It's like he's losing his sanity at what he's just done. And Joel tries to talk him down, like, just put the gun down. Just let's, Henry, don't do anything crazy. But unfortunately, Henry puts the gun to his temple and pulls the trigger. And there's just a shocked, stunned silence after, where Joel and Ellie are just rocked by what they just saw.
Yeah, it never gets easy. Like,
yeah,
played this game.
It's terrible.
This is always like just the worst part of this game, and
gut punch,
and this show did it.
Yeah,
and so we go outside of the hotel, where Joel, he dug 2 graves for the brothers, and they buried him, and Ellie leaves Sam's magic slate on his grave. Mm-hmm. And, Ellie asks Joel which way is west, just like very, like, she wants to appear calm and collected, but this child's innocence is gone. Like, all she has seen is death. Like, this is what this is essentially like what the fourth and fifth person that she's seen die, because it was Tess, and then Bill and Frank were died. I mean, she didn't have a connection with them, but Bill and Frank died in the house that they went to when they were looking for them, and then now these 2 died. So it's just been a lot of death, and she's been trying to push it down, but she's not Joel. Mm-hmm. And so she's just like, which way is west? And she starts walking, and Joel sees that she's written "I'm sorry" on Sam's slate, and from a distance she calls Joel, saying, like, let's go. And because she tried to save him, she tried to save Sam, so like this is she's crushed. And they leave behind the pain and the friends they met in Texas, and not Texas, Jesus, in Kansas City. Like, they just basically have to attempt to bury it all with Sam and Henry.
Yeah. They have to close the door on what they just went through and put it behind them, but it's not that easy.
No.
This scene, it was like they were both in a trance, like they were sleepwalking through the motions of, I guess we just got to hit the road again. Yeah. It's such you can try and be stoic about that kind of thing, but the pain goes so deep.
And it's like, when you're unfortunately in the situation they're in, you have to pick up the pieces and move.
That's right. Well, this concludes our synopsis of The Last of Us Episode 5, Endure and Survive. We're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and we've broken down the events of Episode 5 of The Last of Us on HBO, the episode Endure and Survive. There's a lot to like about this episode, but it also hurt me so much that I want to hate it. It's like, I think you mentioned this earlier, but like, I definitely feel like it never gets any easier to experience this part of The Last of Us story, whether I'm playing it or watching it. Because I've played the game several times now. I'm actually replaying the part 1 kind of remake right now, which is really good. I'm almost paralleling it. I'm kind of like playing it at like almost the same pace that I'm watching the show, which has been fun. But no matter how many times I play this part of the game, it still hits hard. Every single time it hits me right in the heart, right in the gut. And the adaptation, though, did such justice to this leg of the tale. Like, this brief, tragic sort of section of the story, of the broader story, and gave Henry and Sam's story a completely new dimension. This whole thing was just masterful TV. Like, it really was. Watching it tore me apart, but I think that's the intention. Like, it wants you to really, really shake you and like give you something to remember and, think about. It's sad that Henry and Sam couldn't have the same kind of poetically satisfying ending that Bill and Frank did. And even arguably Tess kind of got that too. Because in contrast, Sam and Henry, like, they fought so hard.
Yeah.
For only a brief taste of hope and freedom. And for me, I guess the consolation I kind of give myself is that at the end, they at least experienced some true companionship. They made friends, they relied on strangers, they survived their situation, at least, temporarily. And at the very least, if nothing else, they were with friends when they left the world together. They, didn't die alone and terrified at the hands of raving infected or vengeful militants. They were with companions who, they had not that much time with, but they had come to care about these other people they, sort of fell in with. So I guess I try to look for a silver lining in this kind of thing, but the thematic elements of what's happened here, they're all pretty tragic, but they're important to the broader story, I think.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I also echo. I have been playing the remake. I am just past this part. Literally the next part. So like, every time I play The Last of Us, this is my stopping point. Like, I have to take a break. Like it like hits me really deep. I can never see this scene and just be like, well, I know what's about to happen. Cause like,
yeah, dude. Yeah.
I knew it was about to happen and I just groaned.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, the taking breaks thing is so real, especially when I was playing through part 2.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to eventually, but like when I was playing the sequel, I was really feeling like I gotta stop here. Like, I'm gonna come back in a couple days. Like, so I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's like you got to give yourself that emotional break because like this is tough. And definitely to that point, shout out to Neil and Craig and the whole team and Lamar Johnson is Henry and Kevon Wooder, that was Sam. And they basically like they did an excellent job of like giving more life to these characters, and I do like that they did use a deaf actor for Sam. And like I thought it was great. I thought they because they had like the whole behind the scenes thing, and the ASL director and the person that played Sam. They taught like the whole cast and crew ASL. Like even I think even Lamar Johnson was like, yeah, I didn't know ASL at all before this. I didn't know at all. So they taught him, and he was the one person that was doing it. So like that was like really, really fucking awesome. And the decision to make Sam deaf was actually really good because they were saying, like Neil Druckmann was saying, I think it was like Craig Mazin that brought up this idea, or it was one of the writers, or it was Craig, or someone brought this idea up because they were like, Sam should be deaf because it adds this extra layer of reasoning or why like Sam and Henry would be so dependent. Like Sam would be so dependent on Henry because like there aren't too many people in this time, obviously collapse of society, that would actually know ASL. So like they can only communicate with each other really, and like Sam relies on Henry to know what's going on in the world. So like Sam is dependent on Henry to understand what is happening. And so I was like that, and like Neil Druckmann was like, when I heard that idea, I was like, damn, I should have put that in the game. That should have been in the game. And like, so I was like, I think it was I thought it was super powerful that they did that. And it added this like extra layer to these two brothers that we all knew that they were super dependent on each other. Like, but yeah, it's just honestly like that was a great change from the game to the show. And I think that these characters were executed masterfully because God, I knew it was going to happen and I fucking hated it the whole time.
I know. I do agree that was a really interesting change, I think, Sam being a deaf character in the show, I thought was a really good way to, like you said, add dimension to that character, but also his relationship with Henry. Like as a pair, like they have that bond, and that really sets them apart. I also found it interesting. They made Sam younger. Like Sam is like 8 years old in the show, whereas in the game, I think he's closer to Ellie's age. He's like 12, 13, in that neighborhood. And, that was, just another way to, kind of set him apart. Like what I liked about that was that in the game, the game version of Sam, he does have that little brother vibe when he's interacting with Ellie. Like he and Ellie kind of like have that, immediate spark of friendship. Like, oh, hey, you're close to my age, and it's another kid. It's great to meet another kid. And Sam is like slightly younger, so he has that little brother vibe with Ellie. But the show really leaned into that, where Ellie immediately was like, oh yeah, show me your comic books. Let's play. I find this so fascinating. I love this because that's real. That's really authentic. Like if you in real life see, a preteen, like a 14-year-old like Ellie, meet an 8-year-old kid, and if they're friendly and in the mood to like be friends, like then you'll see that moment of, hey, show me your toys. Let's have a good time. And I think that really played up that big sister a moment for Ellie, which was really fun to see. So no, these were all just like nice little touches and nuances that just brought the characters to life even more when they come to the live action screen. So yeah, I love that dynamic. The one thing I found interesting and kind of like I was curious about this is that when Sam reveals his bite mark to Ellie at the end, he didn't do that in the game. Like in the game, he kind of hides it, keeps it to himself. And when Ellie tries to heal him with her medicine blood, it's like, I was like, I had two interpretations. I was like, I wasn't sure which I thought was that. One theory was that she genuinely thought it was going to help. Like she genuinely thought if I do this, maybe he won't turn. And like she actually bought that. But the other is that maybe she knew it was hopeless, but she was trying to make Sam feel better, like trying to like make him less scared. I wasn't sure which kind of theory I really bought when that scene was happening. I just kind of like, either way, I was still surprised that this version of the events playing out, like Ellie didn't go and alert Henry and Joel that she knew Sam was bitten. Because like, yeah, in the game, she couldn't tell them because she didn't know. But here it's like she kind of keeps the secret with Sam and thinks like, oh, maybe I've healed him. So I guess, but where I conclude with those thoughts is that I think in the show, Ellie, we have to remember Ellie isn't an adult. Yeah. Like she's not a fully mature human being. We can't always expect her to make adult decisions. Like I think like rationally, objectively, if a child told me they were infected, I would probably have to go tell his older brother, like, hey, you need to see this. Like we should all be aware of it as a group so that we can all prepare for it. But again, Ellie's 14. Like maybe she genuinely did think, oh, maybe I cured him. Maybe he won't turn and I will, stay up with him and it's going to be fine. So yeah, it's one of those things like when it was playing out, I had questions. I was like, does this really make sense? But looking back on it, like, no, I think I think the story that needed to be told. Like I feel fine about it at the end, like I always do with this show so far. So,
and I think that for that, like I've got thoughts on that. I can't tell all of them because it is it goes into spoiler territory.
Sure,
but I do think it was I think it was more like leaning towards like try and see, but also like I think that this I don't totally understand how this could work because like. Mm-hmm. There's
long shot.
There's like, yeah, there are much more. Like I get why she did it. I just can't talk about it.
No, I get that
because I get that. I want to protect everybody from spoilers, especially people that have never played the video games.
Mm-hmm. We'll get there eventually.
Yes, there'll probably be. I mean, there'll definitely be an episode in this season that we can probably like come back to this conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, like it was just like hard because like what I can't say is like it's just like she's trying her damnedest to help this kid that she has such a connection with, and like it just doesn't do anything, and like
he unfortunately doesn't work.
Yeah, and so like how do you go from like how do you rationalize in your head being this special person, but you can't do anything? Like you're supposed to be the savior of mankind because you have this special trait, but like then here's this person that needs your help and you can't save them. So it's like,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to save mankind, but how can I do that when I can't even save a single person in front of me? And like, that's something that I feel like Ellie has time and time again come back to.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so yeah, it's honestly, I loved that they did this. I do love that extra detail that they did this, because like it does make her seem more more, makes her more vulnerable and makes her feel more human to me.
I think you're right. Yeah, I agree.
And then I love that you can draw these parallels between, like, you know, Kathleen and Henry in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was one of my favorite parts, is just like how you could, you know, like they were basically essentially doing the same thing. Like
mirror images of each other. Yeah.
yeah, because it's like, you think about it, like Kathleen's older brother was probably more akin to Henry, and Kathleen was probably more akin to Sam, and like, you know, Kathleen's like brother kept her safe and, you know, protected her, and only thing he wanted from her in the end was to forgive Henry. And I believe he wanted that forgiveness because like he could understand the sacrifice that Henry made and where it came from. It didn't matter right or wrong.
Yeah.
Like, and that I think is where there's this divergence between the two, is Kathleen looks at it through the lens of, is it right or is it wrong? You know, like, because in Kathleen's eyes, Henry is wrong. And by killing Henry, I am getting revenge for my brother who was wrong. And so I'm the right person, even though she has to skate over the fact and deal with the fact. So she's trying to deal with it in that bedroom, but Perry kind of talks her off the ledge. She has to deal with the fact that, like, is she right? Because her brother has forgiven Henry and he was the person who was wronged. And so like, that's why I liked that scene, because the only thing that they could do was say, oh, well, he's dead, so it doesn't matter. But but in the same respect, she's doing all of this stuff in his name and hunting this dude and his brother relentlessly. Because if it didn't matter and her brother was dead and they got what they wanted, they could just, who gives a fuck? It's just
let him leave. Yeah.
And so it's like that, like, I loved that, because like you could tell, like, her brother was like, her brother would probably have said, I would have done the same for you. If there was a person in this group, had it been Henry, Sam, Perry, I had to trade it for medicine for you, I would have done it in a second. And like, you know, I mean, the hope is, the hope is that you're just okay. It doesn't matter what people accept. Like, that's the thing. When when your sole focus is just to protect someone and keep someone safe, it doesn't matter what the rest of the world feels about it. And like, you know, Henry, in the same respect, like when Henry was ready to die, like he was ready to sacrifice himself so that Sam could survive and so that Ellie could survive. Like, he was doing the same thing. It was like, it doesn't matter, you know, how Sam feels about this situation. It matters that Sam is safe. Because Sam wouldn't have left him, but he was like, get him out of here. Like, get him out of here. I'll hold him off. I'll make the sacrifice. That's fine. I just want him to be okay. And so like, that's why when, you know, things go the opposite direction and he ends up having to kill Sam, like, it just completely shatters him to the core. Because like, you know, he loses this one thing, this one person that he's done so many things to protect, right or wrong. Like, Sam was his world. Like, his duty in life was to keep Sam safe. Like, he made this, you know, he pointed a gun at Joel and Ellie, keep Sam safe. He, you know, probably robbed a food storage thing and escaped, keep Sam safe. Like, he's done all of this stuff. Like, he went into a potentially infected tunnel.
Yeah.
So like, in the end, where he is the person that has to kill his brother, it goes back to the scene earlier where he was like, I'm a bad person. Tell me I'm a bad person. Like, he really wanted Joel to just be like, you're a terrible person. The decision you made was wrong, because it justifies that this like sort of negativity that he has in his head, that he wasn't right with what he did, when in fact there's no right or wrong. So like, when it goes down to this part and he has to kill his brother, he's like, what have I done? He's like, he rationalizes that negativity in his head. It's like, I've done this terrible thing. I've killed my brother, when your brother was technically already dead. You know, for like, better or for worse, your brother was dead and it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
So that makes that scene that's super sad. But I just
Yeah.
I like watching that. I was like, damn, this is like fantastic writing.
I think, you don't want to necessarily throw everything all the way back to Greek tragedies, but I think there are always going to be some parallels. Like there's always going to be some through line. Like there's, it's an ironic tragedy. It's like, oh, you've done so much. You've made yourself into someone you don't even really like anymore, all for the sake of keeping your brother safe. And it ended up not mattering because, oh God, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to watch. But I think you had a great point with like this kind of mirroring of two brothers and a brother and sister and, these family ties that drive us to do things we didn't think we were capable of before.
Right.
I just think it was such a great decision to like take these characters, Henry and Sam, who in the game were just passing through. They were just like Joel and Ellie, just trying to get from one side of the city to the other. They weren't connected to that city. I'm really, really glad they raised the stakes and gave Henry and Sam like some real buy-in to what's going on here.
Yeah.
And, by doing that, they shed more light on, Kathleen's whole thing and Henry's whole thing, but that all sheds light on what everyone's been through before the show introduced us to them. And Henry and Sam got a much more plot heavy role to play.
Yep.
And just, it all made the Kansas City chapter that much more memorable as a result. I think ever since playing the Pittsburgh part of the game, I'd always wanted to see more of who are these insurgents who overthrew Fedra and then became monsters themselves.
Yep.
And these last two episodes have really delivered exactly what I wanted to see was like, what does it look like when people are oppressed and then become oppressors themselves? Yep. And it leaves me with like an interesting question. I started wondering after this episode, like, what if Michael wasn't turned into Fedra? What if Fedra never caught him, killed him? What if he and Kathleen, maybe like as co-leaders, they were successful in getting rid of Fedra, freeing Kansas City? Would the militia take over the city and maybe become like, with Michael's influence, maybe become a more compassionate community? Maybe not one that's so geared toward warfare and violence. Like, I think with Kathleen and Perry in charge, you have a society basically that just came out of warfare mode, like just came out of a war, and they are in revenge mode. Like anyone who helped our enemy is now our new enemy, and anyone who just kind of wanders through town at the wrong place, wrong time, they all got to go. They all got to die.
Yeah.
Like what if things were just a little bit different and the revolution had been handled just a little bit differently, and you had Fedra replaced with a benevolent civilian government, which is exactly what Fireflies want. Yeah. They want like the martial law overthrown and just people to make their own decisions again. So like, there's political angles to this. There's, that revolutionary theory of we are the oppressed people. We cannot wait until we kill you and become the oppressors ourselves. It's like, it's always fascinating to me. I'm really glad that they kind of gave those questions the time and the space on stage that they needed, and just made these characters that much more involved with what was actually happening in the setting. So,
because part of me feels like they would, there's always the part of me that's like, okay, yeah, how that happen? It would be like Michael would show compassion. There wouldn't be like these lynchings and beatings in the streets and stuff, and like the rounding up of the collaborators. I really honestly think that he would have just forgiven everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I also kind of wonder, like, if Kathleen, like, if it's like Kathleen's mother is still around, but if her brother dying, that's a single family member, which, like, I don't want to put a value on anyone's family members because family is family, but it's like, you have one person that dies and it drives you into like this much darkness. Like, I almost wonder too if there would still have kind of gone down the same route, but maybe there would have been a longer period of everything being okay. I do know one thing though: we wouldn't have killed a damn doctor. Bad move. Bad move.
And threatened to kill an 8-year-old deaf kid. Like,
So like there would have been. It's like I do think like there's that timeline where it's like, okay, maybe. Yeah, they wouldn't have just flipped the switch, because like with Kathleen involved, nothing mattered. No one cared that a doctor died, and no one cared that after the revolution, they immediately had to go hunt a guy and his brother. Like we can't rebuild, we can't do anything, we can't secure the city, like we can't establish a normal life. We're just an army at the, the control of someone who is grieving.
Yeah, it's like we've defeated our main foe, so now we're just going to be pointed toward whatever foe our leader just like it's shapeless anger that has nowhere to go except where Kathleen wants it to go.
Right.
And that's tragic because the situation could be so much better if it had been justified, on some level at least, anger toward Fedra that was then repurposed for really anything else, like something productive, something, society building, like, oh, let's plant some crops and set up some rain collectors. Like, let's go about the business of actually making a livable place now instead of, how about we ambush tourists and lynch collaborators? Like, it's tragic because, like, just a few different decisions could prevent so much pain, so much heartbreak.
I could have put those resources towards dealing with the infected in the damn hole.
the ocean of bloodthirsty monsters below our feet, the fungus that wants to eat us right below us.
Like, I think we probably should be fighting that. Let's get into the security of the quarantine zone and figure out how to fuck up these goddamn infected. But no, we're hunting.
We've got a common enemy, people. Come on,
we're hunting kids. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, we're gonna hunt kids instead.
I choose kids. I'm like, oh, that's weird, but okay, man.
God,
Yeah. Like, I also think like this episode did a good job of like reminding you that like infected is just like this like kind of label that removes someone's humanity, because like right after that infected horde attacks, like we get this scene where there's just this infected horde and it's crazy and everyone's just like mow them down. And even there's a kid there. There's a kid slinking about, ripping people to shreds, and we're still just like, mow it down. It's just a kid. It's an infected. Like when you play the game, for the most part, you don't know who these people are. Like it's just, hey, this person that's been infected for a bit, take them out. Yeah. It's them or me. Like you're always in survival mode. And it's and so like and you compartmentalize killing these infected people, because like in the first episode, Ellie, or like the second episode, Ellie asked Joel, hey, is it ever hard to kill these these things, knowing that they were people once? And Joel's just kind of like, sometimes, but it's kind of just like, meh. Like if I killed somebody, I don't know, like it's not gonna be like I'm not gonna be so nonchalant about, I killed a guy, it's okay. It's like, it's like the war tactic,
dehumanizing the enemy.
Yeah. So because then you don't have to deal with the trauma of killing another person.
Right.
And, like,
I feel like, from Joel's perspective, from anyone's perspective who lives through the cordyceps outbreak, like they're going to have a pretty easy time rationalizing that person isn't like available to be reasoned with anymore. Yeah. Like a human being that you could theoretically talk down and like, resolve the situation without violence. Killing them is one thing, because like you have that back in your mind, like, oh, I didn't need to do that maybe. Yeah. But with the infected, it's like, no, usually you need to, or you'll die. So it's like, there's that, but there is still that question of like, who were they before? What memories did I just erase?
And it's like, it gets even worse when it's like how Henry had to kill Sam.
Yeah.
It's like,
absolutely.
To him, it's like, that's not infected. That's my little brother. And so it's like, I think about like how many people were in that same position, and then how many people couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, because like, that's what I think after, we go for this thing. It's like mow down the infected to like, cause Ellie stabbed a person in the head and they didn't care. And like, they everyone went on their way, and then it was Sam, and it was like, this is my brother. So like, it does do a good job of reminding you that like, these were people once. Like, obviously you're going to have to survive in this world. You're going to have to mow these things down. Like there's nothing that you can do other than that. Like there's no cure. Right. There's nothing. And like, obviously like a bloater and shit it's going on, coming around, ripping people to shreds. Like, but it is like, that is kind of like, it makes you think about like, people are kind of desensitized to it because it's like you have to survive in this world. But then it's like, how many people have been in the same position as Henry who like now, because of that, like, like aren't desensitized to that.
Yeah. It's for a fact, like it's got to be a fact that like at the beginning, like when the outbreak first happened, like, so many people had loved ones, friends who were infected, and were turning, but they didn't realize what was happening. And like, I'm not going to kill my, husband, wife, whatever. Like, so yeah, no. And I'm sure it doesn't get any easier. Like you said, yeah, just every infected person you put down in the game that you throw a brick at and then strangle to death or whatever, like every single one you do that to, like that was a special person to someone at some point.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like this episode was important for that idea. Speaking of infected, man, one last thing I'll say is that swarm attack at the end, like the finale, the set piece at the end of this episode, caught me so off guard. I didn't see that coming, really. I knew that. I was pretty sure the bloater was going to show up here somehow, but like I didn't see the swarm coming.
Yeah,
so
that was
a certified oh shit moment. Like I was like, what?
My favorite part about that was like as they're running out of the hole, one of them falls and then just gets stomped on by the others as they keep going.
Yeah, yeah. It's a feeding frenzy, man. Like it was a thrilling sequence, really fun to watch, really exciting.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, man. R.I.P. to our boy Perry. We love Perry here.
Rip Perry.
Rip Kathleen too, I guess, but I don't really care if she rests in peace or not.
Yeah, I mean, it was ironic she got killed by a kid after being like,
That's true.
Kids die.
Like, that's true. Yeah. I didn't even think of that. That's a good point. So yeah, we got Perry and Kathleen, the ringleaders of the Kansas City militia. One of them going out like a real one, guns blazing. And the other dying like a Karen with a gun. Yeah. That's how it feels to me.
Hating kids, and then this is what you get for hating kids. It's like kids die all the time. Like there's an infected kid right there. Run.
Not this one. Yeah. This one's gonna make you die.
Right. I'm actually still alive.
Jesus.
But no, like that is just like. That is kind of ironic. It's like after that, you just like you were gonna kill a kid. You didn't care about any kids. It went from just hating Sam to hating all kids, and then getting killed by a kid. Like what a way to go out.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I think that brings us to our last bit of burning questions for this episode. We can tackle a couple of these. I think my big question is like, and I know we'll get an answer to this, but it's like I wonder what effects this will have on Ellie. Like we mentioned, like we talked about, she tried to heal Sam with her blood and it didn't work. And she couldn't save Sam or Henry or Tess or like she hasn't been able to save anybody that she's encountered so far. And it's like, like I wonder how this is gonna shape her because like she's obviously blames herself for Sam and Henry and she's trying to bury it. Right. And she's with a guy that is like, God of burying his emotions.
Yeah, the expert at bottling up your emotions. Yeah,
he's the anti-therapist. So like I do wonder. I'm like, how's that going to shape her? Like, what impact is that going to have? Because like I mentioned, how are you feeling special and you've been told you're special, but you can't do anything with it.
Yeah, it's a kid being forced to grow up before her time, like growing up too fast and like also struggling with this lack of agency. Like, oh no, like people keep dying around me. I can't save them. And they're dying like for me so that I could maybe save humankind. But it's, survivor's guilt, as we know from playing the game, like survivor's guilt is a big theme and it's one of the biggest struggles that Ellie has in her entire arc.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're going to see that play out, but we'll see in what way that shapes up.
And then what happened to Kansas, man? What happened to Super Bowl City?
What's going to happen to KC? Like it's not looking good for them.
You guys are getting see, I like to think that since they got rid of since Pennsylvania got pushed out of the picture entirely, that this is just the Philly fans coming back for revenge. Oh man, we've been trapped in the sewers for too long. They're taking the city now.
The Philadelphia Eagles fans have taken over Kansas City. God damn, the Super Bowl tie-ins here. Like
they're climbing up the light poles and everything.
They're breaking into the QZ.
Eating people, It's crazy. Those Philly fans, man.
Yeah, you honestly, like, all joking aside, you kind of do have to feel bad for like the civilians who sided with the militia, with the resistance, and now they're like, cooped up in the quarantine zone. Most of their soldiers are dead at this point. Their leaders are gone, and suddenly, just an ocean of clickers and a goddamn bloater show up. Like, what are they gonna do?
Oh, that damn thing.
Nothing you can do.
Yeah, you're gonna get slammed. You're gonna get ragdoll, tossed, and ripped.
I hope they have a lot of nail bombs sitting around. That's their only hope, really.
Yeah, just use them all, man, because that thing is a coming. They're gonna eat.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess another question is: would you conspire to protect the life of a loved one, and if it meant another person in the community, someone you knew and respected, would die?
Yeah, that's a big one. That's the question that Henry had to grapple with. Like, what sacrifice is worth protecting my brother? And, it's one of those things. I've thought about this. Like, if I was in his situation, what would I do? And honestly, like you said earlier, this is an impossible choice. Yeah. But I feel like one thing I would at least consider is going to Michael and Kathleen as Henry and saying, hey, so Fedra wants me to turn in Michael so they can give me leukemia medicine for Sam. Like, what should I do? Like, I was like, if those are your friends, if those are your neighbors and you don't want to turn on them, like, let them in on it. Like, see if they can figure something out or some kind of plan. Like, maybe you can help them coordinate a raid on the Fedra stockpile and steal the medicine. Like, who knows? Like, that's an option you need to explore at least. That's this is like me Monday morning quarterbacking, but like, it's easy for me to say from my armchair, but it's like, that it's an impossible choice, but you got to examine your options in a situation like that.
I do almost just wonder, like, I want to know more about the situation, because I wonder like how he found out that Sam has leukemia, and like,
right,
and like, did they just get him in an emotion, like, they get him in a basically box him into a corner and like a moment of really being really emotional about this and trying to figure everything out. Like, they just take advantage of him basically.
Yeah, it's entirely possible he didn't have the option to like go to anyone else with this. Like, it's they could have just sweated him out. Like, give us a name and we'll give you the meds. Like something like that.
But this is a good question for, if you're listening, you get this far, send us your response. Would you conspire to protect the life of a loved one if it meant another person in the community that you respected died? I want to know.
Yeah, what would you do if you were Henry?
Yeah, would you just let someone die, or would you do something about it? Remember, this is an impossible question, but I would like to hear what people have to say.
Yeah.
So hit me with your best shot, as they say.
We want to know. Yeah, so I think the only question I had at the end of this was, I'm just curious, like, I'm already looking forward to the next episode, and we'll see soon enough, but I'm just like wondering, what can we expect to see now between Kansas City and Joel and Ellie's destination in Wyoming? Because in the game, they basically end this chapter still near Pittsburgh, and they have a lot of ground to cover to get to Jackson, Wyoming. And so, like, there's a pretty big skip in the game, and like, I think in the show, it's not as big of a skip because Kansas City, Missouri is definitely closer to Wyoming than Pittsburgh is. But there's still some ground to cover, and I'm like wondering, is it going to cut directly to kind of the next stop on the trip, or are we going to see more of that journey than we did in the game? I'm just like, already looking ahead, already excited. Like, what are they going to show us? What are we going to see? What's going to be new? What's going to be familiar? A little bit of both. So it's on my mind.
Tune in next time to find out.
That's right. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Oh yeah.
And either way, we'll be here to walk you through it. Your favorite color commentary providers.
Oh yeah, with all the jokes, the Chef Boyardee and just the video game
and
knowledge.
Super Bowl jokes.
Yeah, the Super Bowl jokes and Patrick Mahomes, come on the show. I dare you. I dare you.
What a get that would be, like, out of left field if we just, hey, let's look. I'm Patrick Mahomes. Let's do it.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes. I love The Last of Us. Hell yeah, we wanted to get on this. He's like, I want to get on this podcast. Let me on, motherfucker. Like, bring the Super Bowl championship. Come on, man. Let's talk about this. Let's make some Philly jokes.
Hell
yeah. Oh my God.
Well, that about wraps it up. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please take a second to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us grow the show. And be sure to connect with us on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter at lore_party. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.